welcome to Jacob's Quest, and last night I saw the 2023 remake of The Little Mermaid, and yeah, let's go ahead and just jump into it. Full spoilers. I mean, obviously it's a remake. You've all seen the movie. You know what this movie is. You know what happens. But anyways, spoilers, I guess. Yeah, I normally do not watch the Disney remakes. I think the last one that I saw in theaters was The Jungle Book, and that was, you know, several remakes ago. And then the last one I actually watched on streaming, I think I tried to watch the Aladdin, which it was okay. It was fine, I guess. And this movie itself, I gotta say, I actually had a really good time. Now, to put in context, I have not actually watched the Little Mermaid original in many years. You know, I'm not someone who goes back and watches the Disney classics too often, you know, especially, you know, my Disney classics are Lion King and Aladdin and stuff, right? So, like, The Little Mermaid's not on that list. It's not one that I have checked out in a long time. So, you know, put that into context, you know. But yeah, watching this, I actually had an enjoyable time. You know, I feel like the songs were done well. All the characters were actually done really well, except maybe Flounder. I think the voice of Flounder is fine, but, you know, having the realistic looking animals this time, it is a hurdle I think some people are gonna have to get over. Flounder looks like a flounder, you know, like an actual fish, and so having a voice come out of that without it being able to really emote at all, you know, that is, it took a little getting used to, and I think they kind of limited his screen time a little bit more because, you know, he can't emote as much. However, I will say Sebastian still really works. I know some people were upset at Sebastian because he looks like a crab. I mean, he's supposed to, but yeah, he looks like a crab, like a real crab. But I think Sebastian actually still really worked. The voice work was that strong. So a lot of the humor that comes in this movie, it's still really translated really well. Ursula, I think they did Ursula fine. I don't think the song was as strong with it's Melissa McCarthy, I think, right? I don't think the song was as strong, but, you know, she does the voice pretty good. It's a lot of, you know, this is a lot more of a whispery kind of version of it, but, you know, I think it worked fine enough, you know. Overall, you know, if I'm gonna be like, is this as good as the original? I mean, probably not technically, you know. Like, I think this one does take its time a lot more, especially with the first half of the story. I think they really let that breathe, and it works, you know. Like all the underwater portions really work, and, you know, they kind of expand a little bit on, like, the prince's side of things. We actually meet the prince's mom, and we get a little bit more detail about how, like, oh, this kingdom, you know, they're kind of falling behind the times because they don't go out exploring, and they're constantly having shipwrecks, and, you know, it's stuff like that, right? Like, they're kind of scared of the sea gods, as they call them, right? You know, so we get a little bit of expansion on the princes and the human side of things without, it doesn't go too far, you know. Like, I was kind of worried that, like, oh god, are we gonna have like a whole thing on the human side that, let's be honest, we don't really care about. But no, I think they added a little bit, but not too much. And then they had some changes, like Ursula, I guess, is the sister of King Trident, which I don't think that's ever been a thing, but, you know, I'm fine with changes like that. I don't know if they're kind of pulling into, you know, the Greek god type of things, where I think Trident is supposed to be the son of Poseidon, right? So, you know, interesting things like that, you know. But yeah, overall, I mean, it is a pretty direct translation of the story, you know. I think the one thing they did kind of scrap entirely was the whole Sebastian having to run away from this chef in the kitchen that wants to kill him. I think they pretty much, that's not existent in this version. But yeah, they hit all the beats, but, like, pretty much all of it works at least fine enough. I'm not gonna say that this is gonna be anyone's like preferred version, you know, but I think to a lot of kids this is gonna be their first, you know, seeing of this story, and it works. You know what I mean? Like if this is some kid's first time seeing The Little Mermaid and this is the version that they grow up with, this isn't a bad version to see. You know what I mean? Like it could have been a lot worse. I think, as a lot of people have seen with other live action remakes, this could have been a lot worse, you know. So like, I'm gonna say right now, The Little Mermaid, it feels like they actually did put effort into it, you know. Like, it feels like there was care, and there was, you know, it doesn't feel like, a lot of people accuse the live action remakes of being soulless cash grabs, and for me, for something to be soulless, that would also mean they didn't put any kind of effort or care into it, right? Like, they just copy and pasted it and wanted to make $1 billion, which, you know, they kind of end up doing, right? But yeah, I will say this one, I felt the effort. You know, I felt like everyone here cared, and they tried, and the prince got more work, and he got, you know, they added a couple more songs in there, and yeah, I was like, you know what? They actually, the other thing, the prince is actually more of a character, you know, like, I actually care about the character now, you know? So like, I don't know. For me, it works pretty good. You know, I know a lot of people are gonna be like, I don't know about the designs of the animals. They made them too realistic, so they can't emote, which I know for things like Lion King, that was a big problem everyone talked about. I think the other thing is that, like, yes, there are parts of the film that are pretty dark, right? Like, you go underwater, there's not a whole lot of light sources, you know what I mean? Like, you have to be in certain parts in order for light to reach the bottom of the ocean, right? So there are some scenes where it's like, oh, it's pretty dark, I can't quite tell what's happening, but hey, that might have been my theater. Maybe my theater wasn't lit correctly. I know that's actually a problem for a lot of theaters out there. By the way, you look into this is actually a constant issue. A lot of movie theaters are not lit the way they're supposed to. They're not using the right whatever, bulbs or something, right? It's like a whole thing. Anyways, but yeah, overall I had a pretty good time. They managed to make, you know, they put as much color underwater as they could while still trying to remain, you know, in that realistic style that they kind of insist on being. Aquafina as Scuttle, I think I've heard some people complain about this, but, you know, look, it is a different Scuttle, right? But I think the whole, like, you know, it's kind of she's pretty dumb, right? But in a comedic kind of way. I think this Scuttle works, you know. Also, like, that's another thing, is that, like, it is different, but I feel like a lot of the humor, especially when they played Scuttle off of Sebastian, and they kind of had that, you know, Sebastian's constantly calling her an idiot and stuff like that. Like, I think a lot of that really actually ended up working really well, you know. So yeah, just overall, I don't have much complaints, other than, like, yeah, sometimes it's dark, and, you know, for characters like Flounder, you know, especially because it's a fish face, you can't get much emotion. But I feel like the crab and the, you know, Scuttle, they were able to, like, emote a lot more because they can move differently, whereas Flounder kind of just has to stay in the water, you know. But yeah, I feel like overall, not bad at all. I don't, you know, like if someone's out here acting like, you know, this is something horrible, like, you know, monstrosity of a remake, it's like, it's actually, it's fine. Like, you know, I think Ursula was done really well. They do make her go giant and all that. I will say, when she does go giant, they kind of, you know, they make her more of a, you can't see her that well. You can see, like, her silhouette, and she's all, you know, I feel like maybe they could have lit that up more and made her look cooler. But I mean, she, you know, I guess they're still trying to be like, well, realistically, like, she would have destroyed that whole town, that whole castle there, huh? Anyways, but overall, yeah, I had a really good time. I think my only thing is that, yeah, the other thing is, what's the two eels' names? Flopsum and Jopsum or something. And Ursula has the two eels. They don't talk in this one, which was an interesting choice, because, you know, it's not as if the other animals don't talk, so I'm not sure why those two, they decided to not have them have any lines. That was kind of interesting. I remember them being particularly creepy in the you know, in the cartoon, so I'm not sure why they have no voices in this one. Oh, also I will say, I think they did do a little bit better job of, like, you know, in the cartoon Ursula she turns people into those weird, what would you even call those things? They're like all gray and brown, and they're like, I don't know if they're supposed to be like sea urchins or something. I don't know what you would call them, but again, it's been so long since I've seen the movie. But in this one, they kind of just straight up die. She has a bunch of skulls and skeletons everywhere, and so it's like, I guess she just kills people in this one. But yeah, anyways, and they did a good job. They did a pretty good job. It is the story, you know. There's not too many surprises, couple new songs, but like I said, if this ends up being the first version that some people see of this story, it's not a bad version, you know. Like it's, you know, maybe watch both, but I would say, like, hey, they didn't like destroy this thing. Like, you know, I feel like people kind of overreact. They're like, oh, they're ruining a classic, they're gonna just, you know, ruin it. Like, they did fine. I think they did a really good job, especially Ariel. That's the thing. The main character, she does great work, and not even just the singing, but like just when she's talking and when she's, you know, doing the whole thing. Like, it's like, yeah, that's Ariel. She's nailing it, right? So like, they did a really good job. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. Are you someone who watches these Disney live action remakes, or is Little Mermaid your favorite Disney classic? But yeah, for me, good job. They did a good job. All right, I'll see you guys later. Bye.